Good evening. I'd like to welcome you all here to the Pottsgrove High School. And we're going to start our April 23rd school board meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you all care to join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The Secretary will note the roll. We have everybody here tonight, so that's great. I'd like to announce that we had an executive session prior to this meeting starting to discuss personnel. And at this time, we have public comment. Has anybody filled out any cards? Any requests? We have no requests. No requests for public comment. Anybody want to go anything ad hoc, just offhand? No? Then I think we have some people that would like to get some recognition.
Thank you, Mr. Lindgren, and I'd like to welcome everybody here tonight. I appreciate you taking the time out to be recognized by your school board. This is a piece that it's important for us as a school district to honor our own and to celebrate together. So we're not asking, we're asking for minutes, we're not asking for hours, but you deserve the time that you're here tonight. So we have quite a few awards tonight. And we're going to go through, we're going to start with our marching band and move right through. And again, I want to thank you all for coming tonight and being part of this celebration. As we start with the recognition of awards for the Pottsgrove Marching Band under the direction of Mr. Sean Campiano, they enjoyed a wonderful fall season, performing every Friday night at our football games and competing on Saturday at various competitions, cavalcades, and band events. This year, the Falcon Marching Band finished with a bronze medal at the Cavalcade of Bands America A Division, a second place finish in the Tournament of Bands Atlantic Coast Championship in the Class 2A Division, and were crowned the Region 3 Class 2A champion in the Tournament of Band Regional Championships. Congratulations. They're going to get them out.
Keep going.
We just like you to circle around us.
Yeah. She's right.
Mr. Campiano here. There you go. Excellent.
They don't need the media. They're just thinking the media. They don't need it to show us the very true. Other stuff.
Good evening. I just want to take a quick moment and thank all of you for your unwavering support of not only the music department, but specifically the marching band program at Pottsgrove. This will be my second season with this group, and I am extremely proud of the accomplishments that they have had and the hard work that they put behind everything that they've been doing. To come this far in 2 different competitive circuits in 2 years is quite the accomplishment, and we're not done here. We've got more room to grow and more things to do, but we can't do that if there is not an administration, a board of directors, and a community behind that group. So we really do appreciate everything that you do for the group and look forward to their growth in the future.
Moving on to our Frontier Division Champions Girls Basketball Team. The Pottsgrove Girls Basketball Team achieved a number of accomplishments this season. Their 17-7 record was the most since the 2005-2006 season. Their 9-1 divisional record led them to the first Frontier Division Championship in the program history. The Falcons qualified for the Pioneer Athletic Conference Championship Tournament and the district playoffs. With 1 graduating senior and 15 returning players, the girls will look to improve on their success for the 1920 season. The team is coached by Mike Brenlinger, Mr. Joe Green, and Ms. Jill Ludy. Also of note, Coach Brennan was just named the Mercury's Coach of the Year this past weekend. Congratulations to the team. Congratulations, Coach.
I would just like to thank everybody for their support throughout the year. I got Coach of the Year, but it really wasn't my award. It was everybody's award. The assistant coaches, the players, the parents, the school board, everybody was very helpful and supportive throughout the year. And we appreciate everything you have done for us. Thank you.
Our next team to be recognized is our Frontier Division Championship Wrestling team. The Pottsgrove Wrestling team was back to their winning ways this past season. The team won the Frontier Division Championship by going undefeated with a divisional record of 5-0. This is the first outright Frontier Division Championship in our school's history. The program finished with an overall record of 15 wins and 8 defeats. With 2 graduating seniors, the future looks bright for our wrestling team next year. The team is coached by Jeff Madden, Todd Van Horn, and Chris Nesser. Congratulations.
If you insist. This one? No, you're... Anyway, thank you very much for everyone's support. The school board, the administration, the community. We really appreciate everything you've done for us, giving us this opportunity to work in this great place and supporting our student athletes. Thank you very much.
We'd like to recognize 2 of our students, Molly Neeson and Michael Gillen, for earning perfect scores in the Word Right Challenge earlier this year. The Word Right Challenge is a competition for American high school students requiring close reading analysis of many different kinds of prose and poetry. These 2 represented our school with a perfect score. Congratulations. Would those 2 come up, please? Got another round of applause, please. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Yeah, we're going to go to him next. Okay? Last but not truly least, tonight we honored Josiah Temme. We want to congratulate him for earning a National Merit Scholarship and a finalist status. Josiah was recognized at a special faculty meeting last month where Josiah's parents and extended family were invited to join in the celebration. To be considered for a National Merit Scholarship, applicants must be in an extensive application process, have an outstanding academic record, and be endorsed by a school official, and earn, turning the page, qualifying SAT score. Scholarship winners represent fewer than 1% of all applicants and are chosen to receive scholarships totaling nearly $35 million. Josiah, congratulations.
just a little, yeah. That's one of the fun things you get to do as a school board member, is to recognize our students and the faculty who advise them, the coaches who come out, and it's long hours for all the sports and all the activities, and to see that sort of participation and the things that the kids get from it, the learning how to win, learning how to lose gracefully, and moving forward. It helps in all aspects of your life. You know, everybody talks about the correlation between people that are in extracurricular activities and how you do in school academically, and then how you do going forward in life after you leave high school. So it's wonderful to have this many people here for winter sports. We had a big crowd for fall sports, and I'm looking forward to a big crowd for spring sports as well, and spring activities, because I can't sign enough of those certificates for the excellent, excellent achievements of our students. Congratulations to all of you.
Okay, good evening once again. I'd like to welcome our guest tonight, Mr. Dave Schaefer. Dave, I thought actually that group was for you, because you were coming tonight. I was wrong, so I apologize for that up front. But I just would like to introduce Mr. Dave Schaefer, who's the co-founder and CEO of Kadam Education LLC. As the board remembers, we started talking about using My Voice platform in March. We had an opportunity to discuss it at a board meeting at the end of March, and at the recommendation of the board, we had asked Mr. Schaefer to come and join us tonight to really get into some more specifics of how this program can work and how it can benefit us in the Pottsgrove School District. So, Mr. Schaefer.
So first of all, honestly, who is excited to come to a school board meeting, right? But truly I am. So I'm a local guy, went to Springford, graduated in 1989, and professionally I have been an entrepreneur in the education space. So back in 1997, I co-founded a company called Frontline Education. We started with a little service called ASOP. And I even forget if Pottsgrove, if you all use that. Okay, so thank you for that. Having gotten out of that, I've still remained involved in the educational side. I've been somewhat of the black sheep of my family, however, just for some perspective. Both of my parents were school teachers. I opted not to get into the classroom, but I feel that I'm still serving in this capacity. As a matter of fact, my mom taught at Pottsgrove. These are just unique things that I can't say any other place on the planet, right? So I believe the purpose of me being here tonight is to go through some context around what this program is. Before that happens, and I realize there's a basketball game tonight, and so I'll be as concise as possible with my remarks. I do want to thank you all for your service. I'm presently running for the Springford School Board. I've served 2 previous terms, and so it's most certainly a thankless job, and I'm not saying that to butter you up for your support here. I do sincerely mean that. So this whole thing started because I had been working in and around superintendents around the country doing consulting. As a matter of fact, I was a consultant for the National Superintendents Academy, which is based in Chicago. And socially, I kept hearing superintendents talk about their challenges around retaining teachers. And I know no more than what I just shared. I mean, ASOP did not make me an educational expert, but I knew that didn't sound right. And so I started to, thanks to Google, I started reviewing that this was somewhat of a systemic problem, that the numbers actually had been increasing. So that's what started this. I'm not here to talk about teacher retention. I'm just giving you the context on why this started. There's not only an increasing and alarming number of teachers leaving the profession, but the damage that happens behind it, we've used a lot of research to learn. And so the whole premise for this was to begin that, to make something that could actually stop that trend. What we ended up finding is that teachers were leaving mostly because of cultural issues. In other words, in fact, some of the information that I'll show you, they state cultural issues as 3 times as often as compensation, believe it or not, for why they would leave. So at the end of this, we ended up with something extremely exciting, and so I'll just sort of go through this. And one thing I will tell you, that all educators and administrators can agree upon, and that is teachers are the single most important ingredient and factor in a child's learning journey. We can debate about just about everything else, but that everyone agrees upon. So this is at the heart of it, to support the teachers. And we created a pause for that because sometimes I think we lose sight of that, and teachers are where the rubber hits the road. And again, citing research, and I'm happy to represent in front of you a lot of seasoned and world-class educational experts that I recruited to help me in creating this. Out of the University of Pennsylvania, Dr. Richard Ingersoll. Out of the University of Georgia, Dr. Sally Zepeda. These are two leading researchers around teaching. And Dr. Ingersoll, over 15 years ago, presented in Washington that there was a leaky bucket as far as the profession of teaching was concerned. When most of the investment was around recruitment, he was the one saying, hey, listen, we need to work on keeping our teachers. And so we studied that it's, in fact, the way that we treat one another within the buildings. That is the reason why the teachers would leave. And so if school culture was the culprit, if you would, then we started to look into, well, what has been school culture? And this is where it was sort of our first aha moment, if you would. School culture, if I asked any administrator, principal, central office, they would all say, oh, it's important. And depending on who you talk to, it might be anything from Jeans Day to a recognition to a beginning of the year celebration. But what it wasn't was actionable. And so what I mean by that is that prior to our work, there was no way to measure. And a Peter Drucker management saying that I like to use is that, you can't improve without measurement. And so how are you able to know that, any decisions that were made or any leadership training actually merited in the desired end result if you don't have a mechanism that can measure it? And prior to our work, there was nothing in the education space that measured school culture. So when we began that, we started with a heavy amount of research. And so, and my wife is sitting over here. It's nice. She never gets the chance to see me working. And she said, Dave, you're never brief. So I'm gonna try the best I can to be as quick as possible. Turns out from research, there are 10 driving factors that make up a healthy school culture. And this is the basis by which our digital platform illustrates the inventory in each school. And so centrally, you would have a visual inventory of the whole school district's culture. And it's the culmination of these 10 items. Now, for educators, educational leaders, for school board members, none of these terms are unique. A sense of belonging, advancement, feedback and reflection, empowerment. But under the context of defining a school culture, the usage of them is very unique. So I'll pause for any questions, by the way, or is it best to just zip through and then open up for questions? Okay, got it. So how do we activate, now that we defined it, and this is thousands of hours worth of research. So while I'm in front of you as a local guy, KADM Education we're in 9 states around the United States. It's a virtual company. I have as partners and co-founders the former National Superintendent of the Year. If I've done anything well that I'm super proud of, I've been able to recruit really, really thoughtful and highly decorated educational leaders. Making this actionable was our next task. Just defining it was sort of the first thing, right? But now how do we pull this into giving this as a tool to help leaders be able to improve the culture, right? And so how we did that was by creating this My Voice platform, and you guys have seen this already. The back of the envelope or the back of the napkin description of what My Voice is it's somewhere between what a survey should do, with the addition of this isn't a survey in the sense that it's at the banquet. We just saw some great achievements from Pottsgrove for your sports. Surveying is like giving feedback to a player at the end of the year banquet when it's too late, right? So surveys, even if you over-survey someone, this is a mechanism, we believe at least, that technologically facilitates getting formative assessment, said that backward, versus summative for those educators here that know that term. This isn't at the end, this is during the process. And so if you want, I can show you a quick demo of what the teacher sees. But bringing the culture into something that is, I won't say it's a daily thing, but it's open for the teachers to be able to provide their input on 48 statements. Those 48 statements are what roll up into illustrating the 10 drivers of school culture. And it's those 48 statements where this looks very similar to a survey. So it's on a 5-point Likert scale. When a teacher logs in for the first time, they're guided through providing their rating on these 48 statements, and that gives their initial culture inventory. And they're invited to log in whenever they feel like they need to update any one of those 48 statements. And so on some regular basis, you're able to have visibility, and I imagine it would be shared at this level on some regular basis as to how sort of the culture for each of the buildings is progressing. And you'd have the opportunity for leadership to be able to talk about things that they're doing to help to cultivate things and make things improve. So this is a snapshot of one of the drivers. And then the statements, this is like if any of you have seen the movie Fletch, if this were at all legible, you'd be able to see, because I don't know that you can see from way back here. But this is a screenshot of teacher logging in. The 10 drivers are on the left. The one driver that's highlighted, collaboration. Okay, you have it there. Great, thank you. Then you can see the statements, those indicator statements are underneath collaboration. And based upon a 1 through 5 Likert score, that's how collaboration is scored, right? So now you have a numeric and visual representation of that particular driver. And so one of the things that we included is this notion of, so we did a lot of work around surveys. Believe it or not, teachers do not care for surveys. That's been one consistent theme. And they don't trust them, they don't believe that, they feel that they're evaluative in nature. So we wanted to stay away from that. This is not an evaluation of the principal. As a matter of fact, when this is released, a big part of what comes with this is that a representative of our company, a former superintendent, will come and sort of guide the communication with your leadership team so that they understand the why. This is about every school, the culture is collectively owned. And that's a big piece that I want to pause on for a second, because it is a bit of a mindset shift that I think is very powerful and very beneficial to get to that spot where it's just a better educational experience for the children. Our belief is that culture, meaning the adults, directly impacts the climate, meaning inside for the kids. And so that's why I'm very passionate about this, because having teachers feel more engaged in their work only means better things. So as complicated as all the decisions are that have to be made around this table, that's a pretty easy one to wrap your arms around. So one of the things that we wanted to do is that have sort of business in the sunshine, if you would. So teachers can see not only what their score is, which is those bars, but they can also see via a line where their colleagues have scored the same piece, so that this gives some representation of, well, am I in alignment with what my colleagues are saying around this particular issue, or am I a little off base? And so I just wanted to pause to illustrate that, because this is it's not historically, at least from our research, teachers viewed surveys as, I'm going to tell you what's wrong, then I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to wait, and I don't see anything happening, so why bother, right? And we're saying, no. This is your school culture. This is meant to be something whereby this is your voice. That's why we named it My Voice. And it's meant to if anything, this is technology that's actually designed to get conversations to happen, but very specific conversations to happen, so that the meetings don't have to be, let's figure out what we could do. We already have the data. Now the meetings can be, let's start coming up with some new processes or new things that we can do to improve the culture. And therefore, that's an improvement across the board. So this is an ongoing process, right? So we do a one-time thing where we educate the why and we illustrate the how, and it's pretty easy to do this. This was established, fortunately, with my experience in creating ASOP and Frontline. This isn't my first rodeo, if you would, so I learned a few things. I involved teachers very early in this process. Teachers were involved in designing this entire thing. This is a very simple, because we have to meet teachers where they are. I'm married to a teacher. So not that that creates any sort of expertise. No, not that you're not the best teacher ever, honey. But, I know teachers are busy. And so this can't be presented as, oh, this is another thing. This is actually, communicated to them that, listen, this is, the school district has made an investment. They understand the importance of culture. They understand in your voice. And now you get to participate in making things better. So it's ongoing. It's 3 steps. After the one-time communication, teachers create their voice. Then you monitor it on some periodic basis that isn't crazy. This is not the healthcare business, right? I don't want somebody running down to Dr. Shirk's office because a culture reading is off. That's not the intent. It's meant to sort of, it does have longitudinal data, so you can sort of see trends and see, and it's an interesting conversation piece. I must say that Pottsgrove would be one of the, we're not at 20 school systems yet. So you're one of the first to pioneer this work, and I think you should be, congratulated for at least, exploring this. And then it's ongoing. It never stops. One thing that I've learned listening to these experts that have spent a lot of time researching and also former superintendents, you have one thing happen in the community or a principal leaves and the culture of a building can shift dramatically. And so this sort of enables, visibility into these things. And so it's that formative piece versus a summative piece. It's always available. Nice little map of where we are, and we're growing, and I'm excited about that. It's nice to, it's a Philadelphia suburb story, and but we're getting a lot of traction early on. Felt compelled to put pictures on these things. I don't know, but it's not like we're a good-looking group. But very decorated, and I'm very proud to be associated with them. Dr. Lanou, who's the third one in from the left, is a former National Superintendent of the Year, and that's a heck of a distinction. And he's a writer, and so that concludes my summary. And I feel like I've been talking too much.
All right, so the question I have is, as you said, you're only in roughly 20 or almost 20 different schools. What I'm concerned with is do you have any data to show how this has affected the schools you are in? See, that to me, if I'm going to spend $12,000 some odd dollars, and every year we're going to have to renew it, I want to know that it's going to work. So what have you shown at the other schools that you could bring and show me and the board here that this actually does work?
Right. Thank you. So this is a new offering, and just for clarity on the pricing, the renewal would be minus the $5,000 one-time fee. So, and if you break it down, we tried to price this so that money's not a part of this. I realize $12,000 is something to discuss, but per month, per school, we feel like this is a very small investment. So to answer your question, so no, we don't have any schools. This was just released this past spring. So we have. So no, you're not the first school. We don't have any schools that completed an entire year where I could say, hey, this. As a matter of fact, full disclosure, Dr. Shirk knows this, but there's 2 international educational journals that will be doing a study that Pottsgrove would be enabled to participate in. About being a pioneer, certainly in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, as one of the first. So you have that opportunity. What you don't have is to lean on, hey, we did this because there were, a couple of, I saw, data from other schools. This is you're one of the first. So now I lean very comfortably as someone that you could come to my house. I'm close by, right? That it's a great investment. And this is not unlike anything else that, for whatever it's worth with me, this is also research-based. And so that's why I sleep comfortably at night. This is a significant investment for me. And the research, pointed so squarely, and there was such a vacancy that I fast forward and say, I can't believe there wasn't something like this already. I don't know how you go about, not so much here. I think Dr. Shirk, we have 5 schools, right? So you got a handle on it. That's good. Some of the school systems around the country have 80, 90 schools. I mean, how do you know, right? Without data. Now, for the 5-school district, I find this to be an incredibly valuable piece of data that you can have more meaningful conversations with your principals because you can at least interact with them. I don't know how a superintendent does that with 80 principals, right? So the short answer, which was not a short answer, is that you're one of the first. And I would celebrate the fact that, and I can feel it. There's care in this community for seeking out ways to improve, and that's where you're catching us.
What is your criteria for success? Reduction in turnover, improved grades, what are you looking for that's going to tell you that this procedure will
Yeah, that's a really, thank you. That's a great question. So it actually, again, the basis by which we started was staff turnover. Mm-hmm. And there's data out of Stanford. Linda Darling-Hammond put out that it costs about $20,000 every time a teacher resigns. So, I don't think that I started talking with Dr. Shirk because he perceived that there was a staff turnover. So I think this is about going from good to great. This is about having data. So if I were to, because I think the answer would be possibly better for Dr. Shirk to answer as to why he feels this would be something of benefit. But if I could speak for him or just from my perspective, I think this is about taking a really good culture that you have, but it's without data, and now being able to take that extra step up. And so the definition would be, yes, less turnover, but also let's get into some of the other things that we want to measure, which we don't have those correlation studies yet, and I don't want to set the expectation that we do. But I draw the conclusion that you have a better culture, it's a better climate for kids, and so therefore I would think the business of the educational journey is going to be much better. Therefore, that's why we're all here, right? We're striving for improvement. One thing I will share. We had this pretty interesting meeting down at the University of Georgia in Athens, whereby I was being presented with sort of the findings of the research team and the 10 drivers, right? And a few of my colleagues who were former educators had been out doing school improvement, right, as a making a living, going around into super distressed schools and helping to guide them. And they were like, these are the same things that we focus on to improve a school. So it turns out the things that teachers want are the exact same things that we think need to have a higher emphasis on. And so it was like a very interesting thing that, this is about school improvement. But I have to be careful at coming out without a lot of data and start boasting this. But mark my word, that's what we believe is the special sauce with this. So I don't know if that helps.
I don't know if I need this or not.
I got you.
Okay. The whole system is anonymous, correct?
Oh, yes.
Okay. But now initially sorry, I don't even block your view here. There's 48 questions that they have to answer initially.
Yep.
And you want the teachers, obviously, to continue to do this. Do they have to answer initially all 48 in order to be saved, or can they as they find time, I can do these 2 of the 10 points now and these 2 next week or this weekend or something like that?
Great question. So first, it was designed to be technically anonymous. That was a huge must-have from the teacher's perspective. So we knew that. To answer your question, functionally, when a teacher logs in for the first time, we get what we call an initial inventory, and that's comprised of a few demographic questions because it helps to profile out the school along with those 48 statements. So how many years have you been teaching? How many years have you been teaching at the school? How many principals have you worked under? So it's a one-time inventory, and yes, we do require that, and it's about 18 to 22 minutes on average that it takes to do that.
Okay.
Once that's done, in other words, if they leave, right, when they log back in, it'll pick back up where they were, and it'll force them in a nice, loving way because we have to get that inventory.
And then does it give any sort of prompt when the account stays static for a long time to say, hey?
No, it's a great point. This is where leadership comes in. So the same time, and I do want to talk about this because I think it's, and Bill, just if you have a gong, you can just tell me when it's enough. The principals will take the same sort of inventory. So one of the things that we'll do, which I think is a really powerful exercise, is you'll have the scores from the teachers. So we really want to get the teachers to have that initial inventory. And on average, it takes a couple of weeks. And sometimes it takes a few reminders. When you log in as a teacher, there's an opportunity for a message to be sent from central office. So that, just as a reminder as to why we're doing this. It's not evaluative. It's your school. Like this is your voice. So take the time and invest in your culture and create, positive change and things of that nature. We've seen where this is sort of a part of faculty meetings where it's like, don't forget, get into my voice, right? We'd like this to be as natural, but we get it. People, I wake up and, oh my gosh, my taxes are due, right? So, sometimes getting a nudge to be able to, to remind teachers to log in and sort of provide an input would be encouraged. We don't mandate that, and right now there's no sort of automated email thing because again, we want to try to have this be very light touch for the teachers. I don't know if that helped.
It does. I guess I'm thinking about the fact that from an administrative standpoint, to be able to look at it and to say, okay, this has been at a 5 out of 10 or whatever, this level, but it's been here for a few weeks now. Is that because everyone really feels that's the required score or because they really haven't done
one
anything?
of the great question. Okay. Yes, I'm sorry, I misunderstood then the first. So there is a report that administration can see as far as percent of faculty that have logged in.
Okay.
So you can we don't have it broken down to the drivers, to see, but we can see, so if you have a very low percentage of your faculty that has logged in the past 30 days,
then it's not.
It's stale and maybe you should get something out there.
Right, and I apologize for another question. Okay. With the anonymous, having this information to me is valuable. But to know that there is an issue within a particular building, I can see that being very beneficial, but how do you do that without, breaking that anonymity? And then also even with departments to find out that, hey, for some reason our math department in the whatever school really is bummed out at the moment or really angry or super excited or whatever the case is,
Well, there's no way to break out departments at the moment. It's faculty assigned to a building. Building gets an inventory, the culture inventory, and your central office is able to see multiple school buildings. The intent here is for central office to work with the leadership team so that it's a collective action and collective responsibility message that, hey, there's something going on, whatever the driver is, right? I'm not the best marketer, but one of the cut lines that I thought was, we believe in your faculty, right? We'd never use that, but that's essentially what we're saying. It's like, now you have data. And so now, Dr. Shirk can sit with a building leader and say, I'm seeing this just like you're seeing this. So what are we doing? And sort of pull it. This isn't let's figure it out. Let's get together and figure it out with the teachers. That's the spirit behind this, right? And I believe very passionately that whether it's been here or not, good things will come as a result of that. I do. I feel that that's a part of this.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
By the way, I'll talk about this anytime. I'm local. I could get with you guys. Even, I love the heck out of what I'm doing, and I really appreciate being here. Trying to read faces. Like, have I worn out my welcome? That's the first step. Mr. Solicitor, since I've known you in the past, No.
He's paying
Anyway.
attention.
Well,
Do you have any
thank
other
you.
questions?
Better than the game.
Please.
I heard you mention about part of the program that asks the teachers how long they've been teaching, how many principals they've seen. Is that like a generalized answer that they can give, like, 20 to 25, 10 to 15, or does it have to be, I mean, I'm thinking, my mind automatically went to, well, in one school, there might be only one teacher that's been teaching for 23 years. And so that automatically zeroes in, oh, I know exactly who that teacher is because Mrs. Smith has been teaching for 23 years. This year, the only one in the...
So great question. So we've spent a lot of time on making sure anonymity, and in some cases, what's your smallest faculty size here? Do you know?
20.
20? So we have schools that have 12, right? So we took that into account, and it's radio buttons that have very small, there's a very small sample size, so to be able to minimize outlying answers like that. And even if that were the case, there's no way for central office or a building leader to be able to go in and access the demographic information, right, and tie to their voice. That's meant to profile the school for conversations with the leadership team, because it's a much different conversation with a building principal if you have a significantly higher millennial teacher population than, let's say, teachers with more experience, right? So that's the purpose by which we put this, but it doesn't tag sort of any of the answers, if that helps. Great question, though.
Any questions over here? I have just a couple. First one that jumped out at me was on page 10, where you had the map and you had there was a white symbol and a blue symbol. What's the difference?
They are, and I'll have to look. It's either we're in the process of contracting or we've contracted.
Okay.
So they're on our radar screen, if you would. And by the way, I will apologize. This is, we have better folks that present than me. I'm the CEO and founder of the business, so I'm doing my best.
No, that's fine. I was going to ask you about, you talked about the reminders and the email and all that. Percent participation, when you talk about percent participation, what are you expecting to get? Or are you going to sort of need to get 100% participation?
No,
Can you make do with 50% participation? Can I make do with all the entry-level teachers and none of the senior teachers?
Yeah, that's a great, thank you. So that's really that's a judgment call. But what I will tell you is that, of course, we want to strive towards 100% because we believe that this is something that is in the teacher's best interest, right? So I found, like, in this state of Washington, very, very, very low participation. I was shocked. Georgia, much higher participation. So what we do is that initial inventory that comes after the launch. So it's launched, shoulder to shoulder at each school with a communication, and then an email request is sent out. And so we're involved to encourage that building leader to send out reminders to get to 100%. I don't think it's reasonable to think you're going to get 100%. I know that the data from the research around surveys is it's less than 10% is the average, because teachers don't see, like, what's in it for me, or they've just been, so, but we view this to be a lot more. Now, I don't have any data yet on, the actual participation throughout the course of a school year from teacher percentages. That'll be
Dr. Shirk is throwing you a lifeline.
No.
What, was I not doing well? That was implying
one of our professional obligations at the end of the year has been the survey participation, and our staff we'll get back a building number, so we promote that as a way to have a voice, and we've gotten 100% participation the last 3 years that we've done that. So it's a professional obligation, if you will, that we've asked them to do because it helps us make decisions regarding the district and that specific building moving forward. So I feel confident, like I feel good about that culture, and I've talked about that before. We have the culture already established in the district that people want to do better, for the district, for our students. And so I think that is already set. Like, that culture is there. We don't have to, like, elbow people to get this thing done. We can get it done right out of the gate.
I do have one or two questions. Would you agree, as a school board member, as one affiliated with education in different ways, that the less number of surveys teachers are asked, the more likely they will be to participate and really focus on that survey?
Yeah, I think for sure. Yeah, and I would also add, as a consumer, I wish that, Hampton Inn wouldn't send me because there's no purpose for me to answer that, right? This is, we actually, the survey is the S word for our company, and feedback is the F word. So it's input, it's voice. Feedback means I'm going to tell you and then you go fix it, right? I'm seeking to, I'm actively participating in improving my working conditions, and in this case, we mean teaching conditions, right? So that's yeah. In certain states, like the state of Georgia, they have a state-mandated culture and climate survey that comes from the department that they have to, and so we're in the process of working with them to eliminate that. As a matter of fact, it turns out ours is founded in a heck of a lot more research than theirs.
And I believe that. My second question, so just to clarify, so currently the survey that the administration uses, they can tweak, they can fit to the specific culture, concerns, questions that they have from that year, say. So just to clarify, using this survey, there's no tweaking, kind of modifying questions. It's set questions.
Correct.
Based on the research.
Yes, and to address that, the reason for that is all of these statements are research-based and have a specific purpose and have been argued more than I didn't participate in a lot of it, but just in my participation, I thought we were sort of going around on select words. And so the reason why we chose not to have customized surveys is because of the data integrity. And you want to be able to have longitudinal access to the same thing so that you can see over a period of time, it tells a story, right? So if there's particular things that you want to gain input from your faculty, notice I didn't say feedback, use a Survey Monkey, or, there's things out there that you can deploy Google Forms, right, to sort of send things out. But all this stuff, this has particular research-based information that we're seeking to find.
I'm sorry. I missed your initial presentation. I'm sorry for that. So, I'm playing catch up on
No,
this.
that's fine. I'll do it again.
There's some educator words that I don't understand. Instructional autonomy, what does that mean in the context of this survey?
So that's great. I'm not a college trained. I've never spent a day in front of children, so I'm an entrepreneur. But so I'll give you the business definition of that. That means a teacher's ability to decide and control over what they're teaching. And so it's a bit of a lightning rod for some schools and for school systems, but it's very real. It's important. It's very real for a teacher to feel like they don't have any say, autonomy into what they teach. And so if you're receiving low scores on that, then that's cause to have conversations around, is there something that we can do to improve that area? And the answer might very well be no. It's either mandated by the state or mandated by decisions that are made around this table. But that's in particular why that's there.
Okay. I'll just hold on those. So very good. Are there any more questions anybody has? All right. Well, thanks very much for coming in tonight. I certainly appreciate it.
Honestly, I've been looking forward to this. So just because I don't get to do this, so I'm normally on the other side of the table. So, but thank you for having me.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Golf clap. Golf clap.
Oop.
Okay, moving on to action items for personnel, number 6.
Yep.
I'd like to make a motion to combine all personnel.
We have a
You
motion.
can't do business.
We have a motion from Al and a second from Jim Lappick to combine all of the personnel items 6.1 through 6.4. Does anybody have any questions about these items? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. So ordered without objection.
Just for clarification, the board, just 6.5 was granting the higher authority. You all saw that?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
that
Oh,
just-
sorry.
That's fine. I just wanted to make sure that you all saw that one.
Yep.
Very good, because that was at the bottom of my page. Okay, moving on to number 7.
I'd like to make a motion, 7 action items. We approve 7.1, 7.2, 7.3, and 7.4.
Second.
We have, you stopped at 4, right? Okay.
Yes.
So we have a motion from Ms. Grimm and a second from Mr. Leach. 7.1 through 7.4, combine those. Does anybody have any questions on those 4 items? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. So ordered without objection.
Okay, moving on to 7.5, the proposed final budget. We're asking the board to adopt the proposed final general fund balance for the 1920 school year in the amount of $68,929,689. The millage increase needed to fund this proposal in the final budget is 6.1% for a total millage of 38.469. The estimated ending uncommitted fund balance for the 1920 school year will be approximately 7%.
If I might, Dr. Shirk.
Please.
I give my annual statement, but I'm doing it a couple years. Again, I'm not suggesting what the board should do or not do. I just want to make it clear to the board, this does not bind you. You have a right to amend it going forward, keeps the process going, keeps us on the deadlines we need to hopefully get this done by July 1st. So again, I think you all know that. You're all been here a couple of years, but I just want to remind you that it is not binding, it is not written in stone, and so you're not obligating yourselves to this budget. But it does keep the process moving for us.
Second.
I didn't. First. All right, we didn't get a first. We need someone to make the motion before the second.
Okay. I make the motion that we approve the proposed final budget.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from the same two, Ms. Grimm and Mr. Leach, for the proposed final budget as presented. Does anybody have any questions, comments, worries, concerns?
Just a quick question, just for the public. Mr. Nessa, could you remind the public how we've done the last 3 years when the final budget? On the final, the actual
He's
numbers
setting
we
you up.
actually did.
what we
We know we're at 1.6, but what did we actually accomplish after it was all said and done the last 3 years?
2 out of the last 3 years, we had 0% increases, and the third was about a 0.4.
Thank you.
Just to piggyback off that, you don't recall offhand, do you, what did we approve in the proposed final budget compared to what we then approved in the final budget?
Pardon me? In the prior years?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've always started.
I don't have those figures in front of me at this point in time, but they typically, the final budget is lower than the proposed final. We keep working on this until the last minute. Things change. The state has not passed their budget yet. In our case this year, we have a retirement incentive on the table, which we don't know how many people are going to participate in. So there are a lot of moving items in this budget that could potentially reduce the tax increase further.
All right. Are there any other questions,
Comment.
comments?
So my intention was to vote no, based on the fact that historically, in the past few years anyway, we've been at about where we're at now and have ended up at or about 0. I'll vote yes at this point. I won't be voting yes to a final budget if we haven't had any discussions, as we have not up to this point, or seen any type of options for us for a 0% tax increase. I think it's our due diligence to have those discussions and make those decisions.
Just a observation, and I don't know this to be 100% true, but don't we also have that discussion during our facilities meeting every time? So we can obviously do something at the full board level, but the committee has been meeting every month to have those discussions as well. So we can easily attend those, just so you know.
And I've been attending those. We haven't had those discussions as of yet.
That's true. What we've been looking at have been the presentations that I've been watching have been the facilities committee, basically a flatline budget for the past 3 years, and plus or minus 1% on these budgets that are in the neighborhood of 1 to 3 million out of 68 million, and they're flat. The big numbers obviously come from staff, salaries, benefits. 67, 68%? Looking for some agreement there? 68% of what we're going to have comes from those things. And, you know, at the last committee meeting, the facilities committee meeting, we approved a long-term substitute, which added 93 million or 93,000. Stop. Hey, if the president can do it, I can do it once.
That was good.
Yeah. So, no, I will not start. I promise. It was I think 93,000. 78,000 was the number we got at the meeting. Okay, very good. So that was a decision that we made based on things that we saw coming from, you know, special ed and why that made good sense. And that was, in my mind, and I would argue that everything is about marketing, because if this is how we're going to say, I'm not going to approve it unless you cut something out, then I'm going to have to tell Ms. Pacito next year you come to us and you say, I want 2 new special education teachers, and it's going to affect the budget this way. And then we get into the meeting, we say, oh, well, I can do it with the long-term sub. And then you've cut something, but you haven't cut something because she asked us for what she needed. And it does have an increase, but it's merited. So we can go through those things, but I'm depending on Dr. Shirk and the team to have gone through almost all of that. That's why we're getting to 0 increases on the things that we can get to 0 on. We have increased requirements and enrollments and transfers in that are affecting our special education budget. That is going up. It is not going down. And how do you cut that? Personnel. You know, there's not enough money in all of the things that we do that are, I just don't see how we cut things arbitrarily. If we have a plan of we think this thing is too big, if we, the board, have a plan of what we think is too high, needs cutting and addressing, I think we ought to offer that. And I welcome your comments either at the facilities committee or now or whenever, so that we can discuss it as a board and give guidance.
2 comments. To clarify, I did not say we'll vote no unless there's a cut. I said I'll vote no if we haven't had a discussion regarding options towards 0% tax increase. Second, I don't feel it's a school board's responsibility, duty, morally or legally, to present or to, you know, come up with, to create the, well, I think we can cut this. You know, I mean, maybe you have a thought just by chance, but we're not the educators, we're not the administrators. I look to the administration to say, hey, if we direct them to say, hey, this isn't what we recommend, but if you're looking at ways to get to 0, well, you know, this isn't mandated, or this, you can look at this or look at that. I believe it's their duty, and then to bring us, bring that information to us to decide.
Okay, fair enough. You want to?
Yeah, I do.
Really? Okay.
Mr. Parker, for the last 3 years that I've had control, if you will, or I've been the leader of the budget process, we have looked at all sorts of ways. Mr. Nestor, Mr. Linky, all of our directors have looked at ways to cut, and we did. Now, this year, we came to the board early, even under index, if you will, 2.1. Our index, Dave, just was 3. And we also, a 3-year project that the board has been involved with around this table was enhancing our foreign language program. So we're adding a program. That's a point of pride. And we're still doing it at this point. Now, let's take all the hard work and say, you know what? We don't want to do it. You have your 0. So
I don't appreciate that, Dr. Sharp.
So my point is, we have done our due diligence, Mr. Parker, for the last 3 years. And I give credit to Dave Nestor. And, you know, my budget vision is always, Dave, how can we do this and this and this? He tells me how we can do it. Dave, how if we cut this, this, and this? He tells me how to do it. So he crunches those particular pieces. But this is an opportunity for us this year, and it's still not over. It's still not over. We still have this retirement piece that we haven't looked at, and we can sit around this table and say that we've added a program. We've enhanced our world language, and we've also enhanced a need in our pupil services department to meet the ever-changing needs of our students who are in the K-2 realm that now come to us. Problems we used to see in middle school, then we saw them on 3-5, now we're seeing them at K-2. So we need boots on the ground and help at that particular level. So yes, Mr. Parker, if that list is something that the board feels they need to see, absolutely we can come up with it because we've done it for the last 3 years for you. So I would just want that direction because it's a lot of man hours for us to get that to a point where we can present that. So thank you for hearing me out.
I need to apologize. I did mishear you. You said exactly what you said was that you wouldn't vote unless you saw a thing. So I apologize for misrepresenting what you said. And we'll get that straight going forward. I always want to encourage everybody to go ahead and speak their minds on what we're talking about because we're here to represent the community. And if we're all agreeing on the same thing, we're not representing the many people that make up the Pottsgrove. So I really do encourage everybody to speak up and say what they're thinking, and why they want to see things. And so good on everybody. We've got a motion and a second. We've got some questions. We've got some comments. Would anybody like to add any other questions or any other comments? If not, all those in favor of approving the proposed final budget signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. So ordered without objection.
Moving on to 7.6, the MCIU Intergovernmental Shared Student Service Agreement. We're asking the board to approve this agreement for shared student services for the 1920 school year as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve 7.6. 7.6. What the hell? 7.6 MCIU. That's the one. 7.6. Does anybody have any questions on this one? No. If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. So ordered without objection.
Moving on to 7.7, the Cyber Learning Program, Senate Bill 34 and House Bill 526. We're asking the board to approve the resolution supporting the Senate Bill 34 and House Bill 526 for school districts providing their own cyber learning programs as presented.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second from Mrs. Grimm and Mr. Leach to approve 7.7. Does anybody have any questions or comments on this? Just go ahead.
Do have a question, although not so much on doing this, but on the bills itself, so maybe a question for you. If this goes through and it's changed so that now we're paying 5,000-ish instead of the 13. Is that going to be retroactive for that school year? Is it going to fall through to the following school year? How's that?
If, if this piece of legislation passed, it would be prospective. They wouldn't change, I would be surprised if they did anything that would be retroactive. So, you know, if it does pass this spring in the legislative session, it probably would be effective for July 1st.
Okay, thank you.
My question was, from your, I guess, limited perspective, what is the likelihood of this actually passing? I mean, do they have a lot of support or not really?
Charter schools have a very strong lobby in Harrisburg. So it's not going to be easy. But it's exciting that the conversation is being had. And there is a significant amount of support building for this concept. If we can do it as well or better and cheaper, why should we be forced to pay more for it? So it is hopeful, but it's not going to be an easy path to take.
And if I might add, Mr. Nestor and I had an opportunity to go to a legislative roundtable, and they feel that this is a bipartisan piece because everybody wants to save their taxpayers money. So that's something that they can agree on, because this would save a lot of money, and especially in Montgomery County, when you take a look at Springford, Perkins Valley, Methacton, and Pottsgrove and Pottstown, it would save us a lot of money in this area. So the legislators, both Republican and Democrat, are really push. I mean, I shouldn't say they're pushy, but they're having the conversation. It's bipartisan. It's a way to save people taxes. That's really how they presented it to us. So we're hopeful that if not now, in the near future, it's as positive as they have been about it than ever. So.
Are there any other questions or comments?
Just real quick, for this, I don't remember the number, for the sake of the community, can you share what, if this bill passes, what they expect it to save?
At this point, we're budgeting about $2.8 million for charter school tuitions for next year. And our cost for a charter school student in our program is around $4,500 as compared to what we're paying to the cyber schools of about $13,000. So it would be saving about 2/3 of that $2.8 million, roughly $1 million for Pottsgrove School District.
I would only add that, to Al's point, there's no rule or law or reason why you can't yourselves call your legislator or their office hearing for school board members. It's certainly helpful to pass a resolution, have your name on it, but I think it would be helpful to have your delegation know how you feel and how important it is to the school board.
Very good. All right. No other questions or comments? All those in favor of passing the resolution signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. So ordered without objection.
Moving on to action items for
Can I
education.
make a motion to combine 8.1, 8.2?
We have two new speakers are heard from. Mr. Parker, Mr. Lappick on the motion and the second for 8.1 and 8.2, the action items on education. Happy about that. Does anybody have any questions or comments on those conference attendances? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. So ordered without objection.
Okay, moving on
Can I
to,
make a motion to combine 9.1, 9.2?
please.
So moved.
Okay. I think Tina, Hattie seconded, sorry. 9-1 and 9-2. Okay, we have a motion to approve minutes from the two committees, 9-1 and 9-2. Does anybody have any questions, comments, worries, concerns? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed say no. Sword without objection?
Okay, at this time, we'd like to have an update from the Curriculum Integration and Technology Committee.
That would be me. Let me open it up. Okay. So we had a meeting last Tuesday night. What we spent the most of our time on was the Act 158 guidelines, which is the new alternative way to get through the keystones. The district, Dr. Shirk and Mr. Voorhis and many others came up with quite a few, what's the word I'm thinking of? We spoke about all the different pathways and how they felt those pathways could be best achieved. What we had the most conversation about was actually the score needed to be considered passing. So if someone were to take, if a student were to choose a pathway other than getting a profession on the keystones, one of the pathways could be, part of one of the pathways could be that they receive a certain grade in biology, algebra, and literature. And our discussion centered around the grade that would be considered passing, or it's higher than passing, but the district had suggested 70% be considered basically proving them proficient in those three areas, since they either did not take the keystone or did not score high enough on the keystone. There was some differences of opinion on that, so I wanted to bring it to the board and sort of ask everybody here how they felt about that. Personally, I'm okay with a 70. A 70 is not, 65 is actually passing in our district, so a 70 is actually above passing. But other committee members had other opinions on that. Let me just finish the notes, the rest of the meeting, and then we can circle back to that. The other pathways were discussed, and they were all pretty much no-brainers. I mean, it's nice for the kids to have other options, but we do need to look into who is going to monitor all of these different pathways. Do we possibly have to hire somebody else to come in and make sure that every student from A to Z is either proficient on the keystones or is on the correct pathway and on the path to being able to graduate? So that's a lot to ask of even our guidance counselors. Even if we split it up between them, it's just a big job. So that's something that will be discussed, I'm sure, at a later time. Let me think here. What else? We discussed something called Advanced Placement Academy, which was basically offering, hoping to offer students who take AP classes sort of an extra sort of, it could be an introduction into the class over the summer, it could be extra study hours throughout the year. There are some teachers that already offer that, and of course they do that on their own time. This would be actually paying the teachers for, or the students would pay the teachers for that time. And there was quite a few different options given, and you know, it's something, it's worth a try. But the high school will circle back on that one too and sort of tell us what worked out best and what teachers opted into it, because it is obviously up to the teacher. We talked a little bit about the map testing. And what happened with map testing is they have their software would no longer be compatible with certain iPads that we have still. So we need to circulate the iPads that are new enough down to the elementary school and make sure the elementary school has enough of those so that they can all do the map testing, but they will have to share. We already needed to recycle quite a few of the iPads, so it really worked out all right. And then curriculum renewal, we're moving along well. Social studies, technology education, and media, library, and music are all areas that are looking at curriculum renewal, and they're all staying on schedule with that, and it'll be a very small addition to our budget. So if we want to go back to the 70%, I know Al had some opinions on it. Jim did too, and so did Chuck. So basically what we're saying is that if these students are going to use that as a pathway, then they need to receive at least a 70% in those classes in order to be considered proficient and able to say, check that off their list and say, okay, I've got this, and I've got this. How do you all feel about that 70%? Do you feel that's too low, too high, just right? I'm personally okay with it.
Can we hear from the rest of the committee and also the administration?
I was generally the person that was sort of against the 70%. All right, so I had a chance. The definition of proficiency to me, and probably if you went to Webster's dictionary, is going to be that you have not a basic skill in a particular subject, but you are proficient in that subject. If you pass a grade, to me, you have 4 levels. You got advanced, you got proficient, you got basic, you got below basic. If you're an advanced student and you're advanced in Algebra 1, ELA, or biology, you are, in essence, like an A student. If to be proficient, the way education is, and I'll ask, of course, the other educators, right, pretty much means that you know more than just the basic level to pass. Basics is pass. You passed. You got through the course. So that's where I led on, I don't know if the 70 is qualified. Now, I've had an opportunity to talk to as many people as I could. I am not an expert in education by any means. So I asked, as in everybody else, I will still say that it is not showing you are proficient in algebra if you receive a score of 70. You are passing, however. So when I argued back in 2012 to bring the new grading scale to our school district, it was mainly for 2 reasons. 1, to be fair to the students of our school district when you're comparing it to other schools. 2, to increase our rigor. I think we've done very well with that. When we argued when I was on the side of arguing about the pluses and minuses, which we went to, was because we wanted to give the opportunity to the students to have an opportunity to raise up one level. I said that I did not believe a 70 was correct. After speaking to everybody, I'm going to say that I would say yes, 70 is. Because you're not looking the person to be proficient in the subject, you're looking to make sure that they're able to accomplish a graduation. I don't need all of my students to be A's and B's at math, A's and B's at English, and A's and B's in biology. I need them to know enough that when they go out into the regular world, they're going to be able to do what's necessary. Yes, I'm a good mathematician person, great. I stink at English. And if I had to be proficient in English, I probably wouldn't be here or have a background the way I have, right? So, and this, as we said, was only one piece. It only allowed you to have one score of the other scores that are going to be necessary. It just puts you in the door. It opened the door a little bit. You still are going to have either other scores to show and combine with this score, or you're going to have some CTE credits. You're going to have other means. So although I was the person that was really the key person in the whole, and I drug this out as long as I could, right, in trying to say we should go up to like a 75 or a 77, right? I now believe that I was incorrect, and that a score of a 70 does give the students the opportunity that they need to show to get the other doors open.
Well, no, well said. So, I mean, really well said. It's a pathway, and it's there's varying levels of proficiency.
Yep.
But what it does is it gives our students an opportunity to get a pathway, and there's other boxes they have to check along the way. And this would just be three boxes.
One
to
of the
check.
3 boxes.
So, yeah. So we support that.
It wasn't up to discussion.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be just for discussion.
Yeah,
So
just
motion
discussion,
next.
yeah.
We'd like to
Yeah.
bring it for motion for the 14th so that the team can get things rolling for our freshman class and beyond. Yeah. Is that correct, right?
Well, thank you for that update. Much appreciated. Thanks for the discussion. And now we'll move on to new business.
One quick item. Actually, I had 2, but I'm only going to do 1.
Thank you.
I just would like the board once again, I know Mr. Schaefer came tonight to talk about K-2 education, My Voice platform, and I did have an opportunity to share some of my thoughts with you. I just would like you to go back and reflect on those pieces. I really think that in the last 3 years, we've created a collaborative culture. And yes, we did have a survey that we used for our staff, but it was a survey based on leadership of that building. It wasn't a survey based on culture of the building with teachers. So it was the administrator who was the one who was the person who received the feedback, and the teachers did not. And then we, as administrative team, used that feedback with common themes to help us plan our next moves as far as professional development or needs and so forth. So I think what this will do for us, it'll help us continue to transform ourselves, as I mentioned before, to be transparent, authentic, and accountable. I think those are things we always talk about. We discover our strengths this way, and we can take action where we need to. So we can highlight those things that we do really well, and then we can use it as a way to help really serve our school community. And I think, as Mr. Schaefer put up and I put up for you, that the most influential component that we have is the teachers that are in front of our students on a daily basis. And this will help us give them the voice that they need so that we can best, really serve them. And I can, really respectfully and proudly say that we've created that culture, and I think that our teachers will participate. It allows for accountability, and I think it allows our administrators to administrate more effectively. So I just ask the board to support it, and give us a chance to kick it off, see how it goes. We're going to keep, it's funny, Mr. Lappick, I think of you about how often, and I want it to be as much as, how often? I want it to be as much as possibly, I want it brought up. I want it, if it's daily, it's daily. If it's weekly, it's weekly. Because I think out of the gate, we need to establish ourselves with this particular program so that teachers understand that we're authentic with it, we're going to use it, and that their voice does matter. And, so I just ask you to think about that with this, and I think it'd be another good tool for us moving forward. So thank you for your consideration.
Question. Does this system, and we may not even know the answer to this as of this time, right? Is it able to be entered into ECRA?
We could create an ECRA tile and use the data. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. That's correct, Dr. Ramage, right? Okay.
He's there.
Any comments, questions on this?
Just a comment. Generally, I'm not like the person that likes to be the first, to be that person when there's no data, right? As you guys all know, I am a data-driven person. I am a mathematical mind type person. I like to see the data in front of me. This is one of the terms I'm actually going to say I'm going to go against that. And I'm going to support this particular piece if it goes to vote. Obviously, if a motion is made and it goes to vote, I'm going to support the piece for two reasons. One, I do feel the gentleman's passion, although I don't want to spend money just because of his passion and such like that, but I do feel that the research that they're trying to portray out there is something that'll be beneficial to our administrators. And two, if this particular piece, and it's very small, peanuts money, $5,000, I mean, it's peanuts, right? If this small piece can increase and create the culture that we want to go as a community and board, I also see that it could be a piece that maybe could be a driver in bringing teachers to our district, because we have an opportunity for, right now, teachers go to Springford, they go to Boyertown, they can go to anywhere. If we could show them something, and as they said, though I don't buy it that much, about the compensation is not the number one factor. To me, compensation is always number one. But if it's not the number one, compensation is not the number one factor, and it is being part of the culture and in creating the culture, I would think that that would get around to the teachers that are looking in this area and could be a benefit to us in bringing them. So I would actually vote to try the system out and be that first guinea pig district.
The thing for me, I want to have the teachers be able to have the conversations with you. That's always the most important thing for me, and I want to give them that voice. The part I struggle with the program is that it's kind of form, because it is. They're looking at, across the country, and I would almost be interested to know, is this something we can do? Mr. Schaefer mentioned about a Google Doc and such, but to have our people in IT sit down with a focus group of teachers and say, we know our culture, and to just kind of formulate something on our own. That's just where I'm coming from with it. I want you to have the tools. I want them to have the tools to communicate with you so that you have a pulse on what's going on. I'm not convinced tonight that that's the piece. I almost feel like, kind of like the teachers teaching teachers that we talked about, is that we can kind of do this within and build it into that. But that's just where I'm at right now with it.
I'm just going to throw out this since we're discussing. I like to have the teachers have that, being powder as well. Having a focus group of our own teachers sit down and discuss the culture. I think the benefit here is that it's actually an outside party looking in and being able to look overall that, that high perspective, looking down on everything, to be able to say, well, no, actually, this is what it is, as opposed to us looking and being sort of biased because we're in it. That's the benefit I see, or one of the benefits I see. So that's.
Yeah.
I need to sleep over this, kind of like you. But first of all, compensation for teachers is not necessarily the most important thing. What he said tonight, I know because I've seen statistical data. If you're after the heavy bread, you don't go into teaching. And those of us who do academics and are fuzzy-minded academics tend to give a differential. You can look at the average salary of the average engineer and the average salary of a college professor, and there's a big difference. So I buy that. Where I have a concern is I asked a specific question. How are you going to assess your success? And I know that for a reason, because I've written papers on college education and how to educate people. And the one thing they insist on before you even submit the paper is what is your assessment plan? How are you going to know whether the work's a success or not? You know, and he referenced Drucker, and I've heard the remarks, you know, if you don't measure it, how do you know when you're done? You know, and I wanted to hear an assessment plan. The idea of a focus group is potentially a good solution, but I wanted to hear that from him. And I asked the typical professor's soft question. I said, what do you think? Are you going to do affect attrition? So I gave him the answer. But anyway, that's a little too much about me. But the point is, I don't know that this is the solution that it's going to be. On the other hand, you know, it's only $5,000 a year, and if it's, you know, if it doesn't work, well, say goodbye. But I need to think about this a little more, because the real question is not how many school districts are assessed. He's assessing buildings. How many buildings are you going to assess? How many schools? Are those districts like ours with 5 schools? Or are they districts like LA or whatever with several hundred? And that's the end that you're going to have to think of if you're going to do an analysis. Sorry.
If I may, Dr. Nipper, I think, and I don't disagree with your statement. I think the research is on us, because when we look at the cultural drivers, then we'll be able to establish our research and our culture. So it'll start with us first, you know, and because it's when he even said about the curriculum piece. Well, I would hope that would be high because, you know, 3 years ago we made a bottom-up effort. You know, you talked about a focus group. We brought everybody in and said, hey, we want to start a new math curriculum and a new ELA, and how are we going to do it? We brought all the troops in, and we heard that piece out. So that would be a real shocker if that wasn't at the top of the scale, and we found out that after 3 years, they really don't like what they're doing. So that would be a focused discussion that we would have to have, but we wouldn't necessarily know that until we do it.
But my point is, if you're going to do a new program, you should have, at least in my opinion, maybe I'm wrong, you know, because Lord knows I've made enough mistakes in my own life, but you should have a plan for how you're going to assess what you're doing. You know, you and I are engineers, we've done building, and you don't start off by saying, oh, I think I need about 10 pallets of bricks, so I'll order 10 pallets of bricks, but I don't have the blueprints yet. You need a plan beforehand for what you're going to do, and you may not follow that plan exactly. What I wanted to hear was, how do you call it a success? Are we lowering our attrition rate by 5%? Are we making students happier by X percent or whatever? And you know, that's what I was missing. So that's just me.
I think the strongest argument not to do it in-house is from slide number 3 that he showed us, that school culture historically. Every organization, every group, every school district, every business, every club has all these things they talked about, the unwritten rules, the beliefs, the perceptions, the things that were largely a concept, rules that were, what would they say, honored in the breach. All of those things start to happen. And I'm here to tell you that any survey that a group puts out knows where those minefields are, and the questions avoid them. Okay, so we're not asking the hard questions. We're going to avoid those most of the time. Whether because we already know it's bad and we don't want to, you know, pick the scab, or for whatever reason we're not going to do it. This whole thing to me is not what I consider data. Data is I've got 35 of these things, and, I have 5 more, that's an increase. I take 5 away, that's a decrease. This is, how do you feel today? Oh my God, it's all over the map. And that's, though, what we're trying to find out here. It's more of a temperature, it's more of a indicator than real data. And that's fine, because, for example, I asked the question for him about instructional autonomy. Now, if we're asking a Montessori school, instructional autonomy is going to be the most important thing, and if they don't have complete autonomy, everybody's unhappy. We've got a lot of strictures on what we teach, and we've got a lot of things between Pennsylvania and the codes and all of that stuff. So we're going to figure out where the buildings are, and the buildings are going to tell us individual things, and as a group, we're going to get an idea of where the culture is. To me, the things that they're looking at, and you have no idea how a character this is for me to talk like this. But the sense of belonging, the support and care, the resource priorities, how do people feel about it? Well, I'm in the band, I never get any money. We depend on our band parents to get us stuff. We're using the same, symbols that were originally from back in the day. So it's going to be a sense of how people feel, because when you're happy, you overlook things and you look on the bright side. You tend to see better results than may actually be results of an objective analysis. And I think that's what this does for us. And we can, you ask, what are the end results? What do you want the end results to be? Do you want to stop attrition? Is that really what we want to do? Or do we want to do those, soft things at the bottom where they talk about how do the teachers feel? How do they feel? Do they feel respected? Do they feel like they're part of a thing? Do they feel like they're part of a bigger community, or do they feel like it's just their little club of the 6th grade team, in a particular building? And when you get that picture, you start to understand things that you can do to improve and get people to feel like they belong. And in that sense, not that you all don't do a great job at everything you do, but I think there are those avoidances of asking questions in a certain way of a certain group so you don't get the bad news. I think this kind of gets around that, and we can use it as, again, another tool in the toolbox to figure out if we're going in the right direction. I mean, I sit here, every other week and I hear the things that are going on. I hand out a bunch of certificates tonight, and I'm thrilled and I'm proud of that, and I like to think that we're moving in the right direction. But honest to God, I've got no hard data from teachers. I've got my 2 boys, and they tell me things, but, that's not data. That's just anecdotes. It's just another tool that gives us data to either confirm or deny that we are moving in a good direction. We have happy people working here. Yes, they have gripes, and if I don't get gripes, I know there's phony data too, right? So, I think this helps, and I'm willing to bet $12,000 on the first year and $7,000 every year after that on it for a couple of years. So that's where I am. Anybody else? Okay. We're good?
Yeah, when can I put it on for next time?
I think so. He said we want to sleep on it. If you want to have another meeting tomorrow, we can come back.
Dr. never wanted to sleep on it, but I could take a motion now if anybody wants to get it done.
Anybody care to make a motion? Sorry, no. We have a motion to approve KATM.
The only thing I'd ask is you make your motion contingent upon our review of the agreement.
Okay. Fair.
No, full speed ahead.
You'll do it, maybe.
Yes.
Maybe.
So, no, that's fine. So noted. That'll be amended. So we have a motion from Mr. Hutt. Do we have a second from? Second from Mrs. Grimm. So we have a motion and a second. Are there any further questions? Don't worry, we'll get public comment, promise.
Okay. I was going to say.
Okay. No questions from the board. Does anybody in the public have any questions? There's time for public comment on this. Yes, please. Well, you have to at least come up to the microphone.
I sense you're not familiar with the process. That's fine. We just need you to give us your name and your place of residence.
Oh, sure, no problem. Do you want my exact address? Do you need my exact address or? Oh, sure. My name is Nathan Lanker, and I live in Saratoga.
That's fine.
Is that good? All right. I guess my question would about the CADM was that the whole point of that is what, to retain teachers. Am I correct in that? Is that what the overall is, to develop a culture to retain teachers?
That's how it started.
Okay.
That's how Mr. Schaefer started out. That originally it was about teacher retention.
Yes.
And that piece. And basically it has morphed into the culture drivers that influence culture the most. And part of that, retention is part of that piece. Not 100% of that piece, but it's part of that piece.
And do we have? Sorry. Do we have a problem with teacher retention in the district right now?
We don't.
We don't. So we're just trying to develop a culture to further retain the teachers that we have.
What we like to do is use this as a tool to really get a barometer of how our buildings are doing with those particular 10 drivers. I don't know if you saw this or not, but we can definitely give it to you. But I think that what it will allow us to do is, and I think I just used the instructional piece too, where we feel like we've done a really good job with our curriculum, where teachers have an ability to be heard, and we just want to make sure they continue to be heard. We want to make sure they feel empowered, that they have the resources they need, the professional development that they need, that they have a direction coming from the building. As a superintendent, I want to know that a teacher feels that there's direction coming from that administrator, from that particular building, that they are engaged professionally. Those are things that I feel that are really our next steps, because we've created a good environment already, and this will just help us define those particular areas and drivers of school culture.
Yeah. It's of my opinion, I guess, that I believe people come to a district, or teachers come, I think maybe at first for the pay, right? But it is the culture that will keep them there. If they don't feel as though they're being heard or supported by the group, I think they're more likely to go somewhere else, probably for less pay. I can only draw back on my own experience in the industry that I'm in. The company that I work for, when I first started there, we had very well retained. People didn't leave. I got there, we had a great culture. But it was all organic. Okay, like it wasn't something that the administrator brought down, like said, hey, we're going to do this today, or we're going to do that, or we're going to have this month. It was something that the employees did with each other, and it spread throughout the whole company. We would I could go into all the stuff that we did, but it was just from us. It was a charismatic leader that we had, and we all bought into his view on how things were. But where that fell apart, at least for our company, is when they tried to, I guess, they tried to hone in on that culture. They brought in a company, I think it was called the ACT program, Accountability, Communication, and Trust. Even though, like I said, we had a great culture as it was, they brought this in just to reiterate what a culture was and how to continue on with this. And when they brought that company in, we had meetings, I think it was it once every other week. We would have about 30-minute meetings where we got to talk about, what we liked about the company, where we thought, could done better and stuff like that. But when we did that, it actually caused some type of dissension in there. People started pointing fingers, oh, look at this, look at that. And if it wasn't getting addressed, then it hurt the culture. And to this day, we haven't recovered from that. We now have new owners, and they're asking, like the people that have been there for a long time, how can we get back to the way it was? And my whole thing is I just feel as though it's something that happens organically. It's not something, it starts with your leaders, but I'm not sure if it's something that a program necessarily will, can help. And that's just my experience.
Yeah, no, I appreciate your comments, and I agree philosophically. I think the success that we've had in the Pottsgrove School District has been a bottom-up philosophy, and the teachers and the administrators have been able to work as a team to accomplish the goals. The board has supported that. The central office has supported that piece, and because we have really laid that groundwork, I would like to just be able to put that culture that we have into a database that just helps us refine that piece. For us, and I have a great administrative staff. When we have a theme, I'll set the theme for the year, but I let them work on that organically, like 212, the extra degree. We talked about parameters, but Dr. Ziegler at the high school did it totally different than the middle school, and middle school did it different from low. So that autonomy and the organic pieces, they were allowed to grow that. This will just help us, in my opinion, as I've researched this and given it some thought, is that this will just help solidify those pieces and fine-tune it, because maybe we're missing something. Maybe our leadership is missing something that if they would just tweak a particular, or would they, boy, I'd never thought about that. I really didn't realize that in those pieces. I think that just helps us, the organization, get better.
Yeah, and as opposed to going out and addressing the teachers one-on-one, I guess you feel as though going through an outside company, they're more likely to tell the truth, I guess you're saying? Is that what you were saying earlier?
I think this gives them the autonomy to look at this and make an honest decision.
Yeah.
And I do feel the district survey that we've done and the building surveys that we've done, the research-based surveys on the administrator, like rate your administrator, rate your principal team, if you will. They've been honest and upfront with us, and I don't think because we've created that organically, we've said, look, we addressed the elephant in the room, and the elephant in the room is that boards change, superintendents change, staff members change, but you know what? You're the people that make a difference every day in the district. You need to have a say. Here's your opportunity to do so. So we've created that piece. I'm looking for this piece as a refinement to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess my only concern is, like, if there isn't an outlying issue currently, and Mr. Schaefer said that there's no research yet, no conclusions drawn from his. Did he have 5 schools that are involved? Is that what he has right now? 5 schools that has his program? But there's no feedback yet from there to draw a conclusion yet. I'm just not sure that this is something that needs to be hit right out of the gates with. You know what I mean? That's just my opinion. But I just wanted to voice that.
Good thoughts. No, good thoughts.
All right. Thank you. Do you need this? Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, does anybody have any additional comments or reactions or anything else? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Okay. Well, we have 2 noes and an abstention.
6-2-1.
And we have to wait for Ashley. Well, we have 5. We have 5. Motion carries.
Okay.
So that's that. All right, so now we're at item 12. Anybody care to vote? So, I'm sorry, we finished new business, we voted for the motion, we approved it. Thank you. So that brings us back to item 11, public comment. Does anybody have any new public comment? Nobody's just back there sitting, thinking of new thoughts, throwing our direction. All right, if not then, item 12, adjournment. Take a motion. We have a motion. We have a second. Motion and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Thank you for coming and playing.